transparency mode.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Pain-Free Posture. Go ahead and grab your mat and 2 blocks today, and we'll get started. And a strap. Move this back just a bit. Maybe go to the computer. All right. Take a moment to feel your feet on the floor. I'm going to turn that down a little bit. I'm going to have you start today with, again, going after some of the nerves in your neck. So feel the space. When you bend to one side and then bend to the other, just notice if there's any kind of discomfort, sliding, clunking, or difference. Like maybe one side of your neck feels like it can bend up and over, and the other side feels like it's more of a straight line. So just notice different aspects of what's happening. Now think of all of the nerves that control the power supply to the muscles and organs in your upper body come right through these neck vertebrae. And when we think about texting or how many hours we're spending in this position with this curve beginning to reverse out, and how little room then there is for the nerves to travel through the foramen and through the vertebrae to be able to get that power supply. And some people say we don't notice that they're clamped down until they're like 90% blocked. Then you start to have pain down your arm, numbness in your fingers, different things like that through the brachial plexus, numbness at an elbow, pain maybe in a forearm muscle or something like that. So we want to restore the curve of your neck, put your ears back over your shoulders, and go after that position. Take your chin down and lower your head, and then bring your head up, and then bring your ears back over your shoulders and look up. And just check, how does that feel this morning? As you go into extension, does it feel okay? Come head down, so chin tucked, slide forward, pulling those nerves through your back, even nerves that go all the way down to the muscles in your toes, and then ears back over your shoulder, head up. Good, now bring your arms out to the sides, and then as you take your head to the right, bring the left arm in so that you're giving these nerves some slack, and see if you can take your ear all the way over to that arm. And come up, and then put some slack on this side, and then see how far they can go. Nice. All the way up, switch, over. Up, switch, keep your elbow high. And then notice again, do you have a different pull, a different feeling on one side than you do the other? Excellent. Take it into your shoulders now. Let's work on changing the upper back. I want you to place your hands together so that they press. Actually, let's grab your block. Let's give a little better space. So ears over shoulders, hands on your block. Now push your block forward and round your upper back. So you're trying to move your shoulder blades off your back, or protract the shoulder blades off your back all the way, and then retract them, squeeze them together. Squeeze the block, press, round, and you may feel some abdominal muscles start to kick on as you start to flex the spine, because that spinal flexion happens from your abdominals, as well as these serratus muscles over here that move the shoulder blades away from you. Pull them back, squeeze the block, press, move it away from you. Do both shoulder blades move off your back evenly? Excellent. Release. Okay, let's go down to some of the nerves that go down to your lower body. So come onto your hands and knees. And now we're going to use the leg and the head to move the nerves or floss the nerves that go down to your foot. So as you take your head forward, I want you to bend the knee, point the toes, so that you're putting slack on the nerve from the bottom part and pulling it through your spinal cord. And then reverse the direction. As your leg extends out, look up. And breathe. Head down, leg in. And head up, leg out. Again. And release, switch sides. Extend your leg, point your toes, and as your head goes down, your leg comes in. As your head comes up, the leg goes up. Down, and up. Down, and up. And down, and up. And release. Great, into quadruped rocking. So put the curve in your lower back and gently round your upper back so you're in a neutral spine position. So not collapsed in your shoulders, but pressing up from your hands to the floor. Keep the curve in your lower back and just rock back right to the place where you feel like your legs and your pelvis start to meet. And that may be really different for some people than others, right where your tailbone begins to turn down toward the floor. That's the butt wink, and we want to stop right there this morning and then come forward. Good. And draw back, keeping the curve, keeping space in your upper back. Excellent. And come back, and then go forward. Again, back and forward. Now notice the sensations in your hips. Do you have a different feeling in the right hip than you do from the left? Maybe more binding, maybe more like you want to go over to one side. Notice what's happening in your hips, and then let's move your knees slightly wider apart. You can bring your ankles together and see if that changes the feeling that you have as you draw back. Do you have more space? Do you have less space? Explore your own hip joint a little bit. I have more space when my knees go out for sure. It's much easier for me to go farther back with wide knees than it is with my knees more narrow. Okay, now take your feet out a little bit and do the same thing and just see if that still is true or if that starts to restrict it. When my feet are wide, that's it. That's as far as I can go. So I have something blocking my hip. Otherwise, my tailbone would turn down to go past that. So I have more range of motion with my feet together. How about you? Yeah, same. Good, that's true for most people, but not everybody. Now, what might that mean when you go into a squat? Are you going to be someone that can squat farther down with your knees a little wider apart? Maybe better position for your spine? How do you explore that? Okay, grab your block. Take it and hook the back knee there. We're going to do some hip rotations. Take that up. Hold that so your hamstring is working, the posterior chain is working, and just make some big circles with everything else being held stable. So low belly, pushing, stabilize your spine by pushing out. If I put my fingers into your belly and you were to push them out, that's the stabilization that we need right now, that intra-abdominal pressure. So that the muscles of the hip get to lengthen and contract, and it's not moving the rest of your pelvis around. And then reverse the direction, so down, out, and up and around. And then switch legs. Find the neutral position for your spine again. Take it up and around. Now, you could, if you have two blocks, set the other block on your back just to have some more feedback about that stability right there. And reverse it. Awesome. Release, release. Come on to your back. That was hips. So you can feel the same thing. Now our back is being stabilized by the floor. That limits how far backwards our pelvis can tip. So feel just that posterior tip gently happen, but feel where that is. So again, if you bring your knees a little bit wider, can you keep a flatter back? And how far can you draw your knees in without your tailbone starting to come up off the floor? So leave your tailbone down. Just explore, where is that in your hip? So Olympic lifters, for instance, their knee can drop right into their armpit really easily. And some of us, more Northern European generally, have knees that maybe want to stay out here. So feel just where that is. And if you bring the knee in a little bit across, do you have any discomfort in the hip? Or that's exploring your labrum a little bit, the space around the hip socket. And you could just take it out and around and just feel, how does it move when you explore your own hip socket? Good. Now hold that leg up there. We're going to move right here at the knee. I want you to turn the space, so you're using hamstring tendons right back here. And you're gonna move the lower leg out and in, and see if you can find how the different sides of the hamstring pull to rotate the lower leg in or out. So the foot's gonna move, but see if you can drive that rotation, and you may have an easier time finding it, bend the knee a little bit more. But there are actually muscles in that back of that knee and your hamstrings that will rotate the lower leg just a little bit. Good. I'm getting some clicks and crunches in my knee. Then let's go into the ankle. Hold everything else still and circle your foot 20 times all the way around. Foot circles and point flexes. So controlled articulation of the ankle joint. Reverse it. Point and flex. And release. Switch sides and explore this side. Do you have a really different hip on this side, or is it similar? So can that knee drop into the armpit? Is it without really taking the low back all the way to flat? As you move it around, see if you can pull the knee kind of across your body a little bit, and just if you run into any discomfort or resistance, just notice it and don't push into it. But my body says, nope, that's about where it stops. How about to the outside? And then can you just imagine that your hip joint, you're just going around that hip socket a little bit and just feeling where it is. And is it fairly smooth? Okay, now let's try to move the lower leg right below the knee with the hamstring tendons and the muscles behind the knee. So the foot is going to move, but we're not driving the rotation from the foot. You're doing your best to find right at the lower leg that bit of rotation in and out. And then find where your hip can come up and that other hip can be down. And then circle. Shoulders down and back. 20 circles. Reverse. Point and flex. And then grab your strap, especially if your knees like to be slightly wider than your hips. Put the strap above your knee. We're going to create some stability there. And then allow the knees to just be in that position, slightly wider than the hip, so that the pelvis has room to move as you go into the pelvic tilt. Forward and back, getting that motion to happen between the hip socket or hip. Forward and back. And then keep some pressure out against your strap and bring your arms out to the sides. Squeeze your shoulder blades underneath your back, in toward your spine, and release. Squeeze, release. 10 times. Keeping that pressure out at your legs, finding some glute medius, getting even and control through your torso, slight curve in your low back, and hopefully a slight curve also in the neck. I heard a pediatric orthopedic starting to talk about that kids in their teenage years were starting to develop a dowager hump, which didn't happen to people until they were old before. So let's do what we can to bring our shoulder blades back down our back and put the curve back into our necks so that that hump in our upper back goes away. Drop your arms down and bring them back up. Keep that pressure out against your knees. Down and up. So into the rotator cuff. The shoulder blades can stay pretty stabilized down on the floor right now, and the arm bone can do that rotation. Excellent. Roll over. Keep that strap between your knees. We're going to keep finding that glute. And then you can just let your hand on your head. You could grab your block just to add a little bit of resistance or weight. And then rotate that arm all the way up to the ceiling. Get that full external rotation while you're stabilizing both through your belly, so that intra-abdominal pressure, and pulling out against that strap so that you're working that whole gluteal complex. All the way up, all the way down. All the way up. If you had a dumbbell close, you could grab it if you wanted more than what we can do just with this. Those butt muscles should be burning by now. Awesome. Switch side. So find that intra-abdominal pressure again. Pull out against the strap, find your butt muscles. Hold it. Is it the same as it was on the other side? And then find your external rotators or all of your rotator cuff muscles in that shoulder. Supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres, and subscapularis muscles. more. Awesome. And release your knees. Excellent. Onto your hand. Let's go all the way up to standing. All the way up. I'm going to go into the hip flexor. So the psoas muscle from the low back all the way through the pelvis, hooking out to the inside of the leg. The main role is a hip flexor, but it restricts your ability to take the hip behind you if it's too tight. So go ahead and bend the front knee into a bit of a lunge. Straight foot. And then right in the crease of that hip, you can find where the quad comes up and just to the inside of that, the hip flexor space, or so as you can find it. And then create some of that stiffness in your core so that the hip flexor can start to open behind you. And then let's go ahead and take your hands behind your head and then lean away from it just a bit and allow it to open some more. Breathe. Head pressing back into your hands so that you maintain the curve of your neck. Yep, that's a balance challenge. Back up. Good, and then interlace your fingers, flip your hands over, take it all the way up, and see if that changed it as we opened the upper back a little more. Did you get more pull? If you're not getting enough pull, take that leg farther behind you and see if you can find it that way. Some of us have a quad that's tight. Some of us have a psoas that's tight. You can tuck your tailbone down toward the floor, and that will pull on that muscle a little bit more. And then up and switch. Bend into your lunge. Hands go behind your head. Feel all the way at the base of the heel. Root the heel. And then bend away from that back leg. Add breath. And come on up. And then interlace your fingers, flip them over, take it up. Root your tailbone, create some stiffness. Bend that knee a little more. Breathe. And step up. Grab your block. So see now if the psoas is more open. We're hoping that our low joints are beginning to naturally line up. So ankle, knee, hip, shoulder, and ear, so that we don't have to effort about it. See if you can bring your hands back. Now I have a right shoulder that's tighter than the left. See if this is possible for you to hold onto your strap and create some pressure behind you, finding some of the muscles on the back side of your shoulders to squeeze onto that block. And then can you open your shoulders a little more, even if you have to take your fingertips to the block so that the arms can be a little bit more like a circle, and then draw the shoulder back and maybe look up. If we find a place that's different between right and left, can we make it more even? and release. Excellent. Let's work on balance a little bit today. Let's just first take just a regular balance. So pull one foot up. You can put your toes on the ground if you need a little assist. Otherwise, hold that leg up with your hip flexor. Good, and just put the leg down, pull it back up. 10 times. Now, if you figured out that your hip likes to go a little bit to the outside, and you can bring that knee much higher than you can if you come straight up, and then go that way. Stabilize, bring the knee to the chest, and drop it back down. And switch. Good, now let's use the other muscles on the back side. So this time, balance. Just keep as tall a torso as you can. The glute really takes the leg back about 10 degrees. It's not a ton. So if you create stiffness in the front so that it doesn't just pull more of an arch into your back, feel where that is. And then just push the back leg behind you until you can feel the glute. And maybe if you found that your knee goes out to the side better, feel where the hip moves backwards so that you can actually find the glute. Maybe it's straight back, maybe it's slightly turned out given the position of the femur in your hip socket. Feel where it is where you can create that really strong butt contraction, and then take it down. Again, stiffness in your belly. You even take your block to your hip bones so you can feel that they're not going forward, and then lift behind you and find that glute. Back down and lift. Again, we want the head of the femur to stay held back by the glute lifting before the hamstring and not the other way around. Find that butt. Awesome. Switch sides. Balance, stiffness, hip bones stay stabilized. Find where your hip can go behind you and you can find the glute, the butt muscle. Feel the butt muscle contract and then let it come back down. Lift. Switch. This time, let the knee go straight down to the floor. I just drop my block. I'm going to take my hands behind me, open my upper back and my shoulders, create some stiffness here with the intra-abdominal pressure so that as I go into the hamstring curl this time, this is staying stable. Curl it up, keep the knee pressing straight down to the floor. How high can you bring that leg up? And down. and then switch. Knee straight down to the floor, pointed toe, lift and lower. Find that hamstring. Face front. Side to side, little lift, little lunge, back up. So keeping one leg straight so the adductor gets to lengthen while you load into this side. Feel all of those muscles working in your leg, stabilize around your hip. Can you go a little lower? One more each side. Excellent. Grab your block, come down onto your knees. Setting your block down. Taking your foot over your block, letting your knee go over your toes. So back into that hip flexor length. Letting your knee compress all the way as long as it feels okay and there's no pain. Find your balance, shoulders down your back. Now, as we go into this, your pelvis is basically neutral, but we may start to go a little posterior on one side and a little anterior on the other. So that's putting some little torque on the SI joint, just slightly. Kind of like what happens when you're walking. There's like a seesaw that has to happen in your pelvis. If you figured out that your hip did better slightly to the outside, play with that a little bit here. Feel where it is when it's straight, maybe it's great. Feel where it is when you just take it an inch to the right. Does that allow you to keep this back position stable and go a little lower into that knee? And release. Switch sides. Heel up on your block like you're in high heels. Taking it down. Opening that back hip. Again, seesaw at the level of the pelvis. A little bit backwards on this bent knee side, a little forward on this hip flexor. And then play with the position of that knee again. Take it slightly wider. How is that for you? And come on back. Cats and dogs. Round and arch. And again, in your hands and knee position, if you add easier movement of your pelvis with your legs slightly wider, take your knees just a touch wider and let your pelvis go down so that you can control between your two sides and your back and into your shoulders all the way up and all the way down. Okay, hold that position again. And then take your arm all the way up above your head and just try to lift it as high as you can to the sky, keeping everything stable in your belly. Take 3 deep breaths, fully in, full exhale. Full inhale, full exhale, full inhale, full exhale. Release your arm, switch sides. Lift it up there, thumb to the ceiling, stabilize, full inhale, full exhale, full inhale, full exhale, full inhale, full exhale, and release. Now hands here, little arch in your back. See if you can move your ribs side to side. So you can sway in your hips a bit, but find some mobility sideways. And then let's see if our bodies will rotate today. Come into an upper spinal floor twist. Stacking your arms, stacking your knees, and then with the pelvis in that position, breathe your shoulder open. You can squeeze into a fist and open your fingers wide to activate that entire line of muscles from your hand into the back of your shoulder. And see if that allows for more rotation easily. It certainly helps mine. And untwist. Roll to the other side when you're ready. Knees and hips stacked. Opening your arm. Squeeze a fist. Spread your fingers from the periphery into the core of your body. There's a fascial connection between all of the muscles that come through the forearm into your hand, into the shoulder, underneath that shoulder that helps stabilize the shoulder so that upper back can move into that rotation. And all the way into your neck. Breathe big full breaths. And untwist onto your back once more. Hold your torso stable as you bring your legs out and in, keeping the curve in your low back, out and in, enough control in your belly that that doesn't go anywhere. Drop one and switch. And then take both legs all the way out to the floor so you're balancing on your sacrum. Take both legs out and in. Shoulders gently down and back. And windshield wiper your feet. Internal rotation, external rotation. Deep muscles in your hips. Can they pull the head of the femur around to let the hip open all the way and come all the way in? Excellent. Come into your position for your meditation. That could be right here, allowing everything to just fall out to the sides, or that could be coming up to seated. If you come up to seated, please practice good spine hygiene. So rolling arm and leg move together, coming to the side and coming all the way up. Come into whatever position feels right to you. Close your eyes. Notice physical body. Notice breath. Notice if a thought arises. Become the witness to that thought, or an emotion, or a feeling that exists right here, right now. As you settle into this, can the mind become more still? Can you notice the space that exists? Notice the part of you that's paying attention. And then see if you can pinpoint the site of attention. Does the site of attention come from your head? Is it bound within your physical space of your skin? Or when you try to pinpoint the seat of attention, do you notice that there's a more broad space that you're aware of that maybe isn't bound by your skin? How much awareness of light do you have today? Within your physical body or outside of your physical body? What exists right here in this moment that you can experience fully?
how do we have full acceptance of what exists right here? And how do we step into high vibrations of love and gratitude and kindness, both for ourselves and for the world around us? Take one deep breath together. Know that this calm space is always available. The rest of the day kind of plays upon this space. And at any moment, you can turn your attention back to this space when you need a pause, when you need that calm, when you need to shift your vibration from whatever is arising to something that feels like it serves you better. Thank you for being here. I love ya. Namaste.
Good work today.